Welcome to Falcons Drip, your go-to source for Falcons news and draft coverage. I'm Thon, founder and voice of Falcons Drip. And as always, I'm joined by my co-hosts, Jeff and Ferg, and today we're going to dive into the interior D-line, defensive tackles, noses, maybe the guys who might bump out to edge in the 3-4. But before that, Ferg,
I've got your fun facts. Come get your fun facts. Tigers. All right, so here's a fun fact for you guys. Tigers are actually the largest cat species in the world, reaching up to 3.3 meters in length and weighing up to 670 pounds. So, for all of you out there that don't know how to convert meters to feet, 3.3 meters is approximately 10.8 feet, or just under 11 feet.
Yeah, we totally knew how to do that before 10 minutes ago. Anyways, so tigers, are we talking about like saber-toothed tigers, or what's going on there with that?
Bengal tigers.
All right. No, so what are Bengal tigers, are they the same as like the white tigers that you see around?
I believe that they can be.
I think those are Siberian tigers.
You're right.
It's a different species of tigers because Bengal tiger is the most common tiger species in the world, but Siberian tigers, I'm fairly certain, are much more rare. In fact, they might be one of the rarest species of tiger.
Huh. That'd be cool to own one.
I agree. I'm sure that there are some Russian oligarchs out there that own Siberian tigers.
That would be pretty sweet. So, talking about tigers, why don't we talk about the most dominant tiger we have on our team, and that's the Clemson tiger, Grady Jarrett.
Grady Jarrett.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. I mean, the best defensive player maybe on the team. It's between him and Deion Jones.
Yeah, and that just kind of depends on what you're looking for and what what the season brings. Like, I think last year Grady was probably the best, but this upcoming season, what Dean Pease is going to do with Deion we could see Deion surpass him. But for now, well, I'd still give it to Grady.
Where do you put him? Where do you put Grady Jarrett in the NFL? Where do you put him? How do you rate him?
As a top defensive tackle?
He's a top defensive tackle.
In my opinion, I think he's underrated. He's a top 5 guy, but I have him as number 2. It's Aaron Donald, and then it's Grady. And then there's a couple guys that you could argue are as good as Grady, or some people would say better, but I would disagree. Like, Grady does so much so well, and on a defense where he's the focus. There aren't very many teams where you're like, okay, like, who's the guy we got to stop? It's Grady.
Some of the other good guys, like Cam Hayward, is playing next to T.J. Watt, and he had Bud Dupree. Yeah. I mean, they're in much better situations. Most of the other really good guys.
And then there's Aaron Donald.
He makes his own good situation.
I mean, Grady Jarrett is right. He's up there.
3 sacks in the Super Bowl that we won't talk about. I was there. But Grady, I expect another big year from Grady. He came in, only had 4 sacks last year, which is a little down from the 2 years before. Again, when you don't have much else around you, you're rushing from the interior, you're going to get double teamed very frequently.
Yeah, I mean, interior rush also, let's be honest, like, interior rush isn't typically where you're looking to acquire most of your sacks. I'm not saying it can't or doesn't happen, but that's not typically where you want or where you will receive most of your sacks.
Especially, too, because, like, he'll play at the 3-tech, where, like, some of these other interior guys, like J.J. Watt, will rush from the inside, and Aaron Donald rushes from the inside, but typically they'll widen out and play at, like, a 5-tech, like, on the defensive end-ish type spot.
Right.
Where Grady, most of the time, is rushing from the interior.
He is center.
And he uses his quickness and explosiveness to get off the ball, beat these guys, and get into the backfield.
Yeah, that's his world. That is literally his existence. A-gap to A-gap. That's his existence.
I would say, and just B-gaps. A-gaps, and he'll bump out to the B-gap.
When he's good, they let him go to the B-gap.
I don't think you understand. Grady determines when and where he goes.
Right, absolutely. No question. I should rephrase that, right. When the coaches are good, Grady will tell them, I'm going to go to the B-gap.
Yeah, exactly. So there's not too much else to say about Grady. I expect another big year. We need him to really to thrive, because teams are going to be doubling and focusing on him, which is going to allow Dean Pease to open up more of his blitz concepts, and he's going to Grady, because of these blitz concepts, might get left out with more one-on-ones, which is going to cause him to cause more havoc in the backfield. So I think talking about Grady, he could really start at any one of these 3 interior defensive line spots. When you look at how Dean Pease kind of runs this, in the 3-4, you have a nose and then 2 defensive tackles. But then when you shift from the 3-4 to the 4-3, you have an outside backer walk down, put his hand down in the dirt. That'll be like Dante Fowler. And then you have a defensive end bump over. Defensive tackle bump over to the defensive end spot. Are you guys following me?
Yes.
So with that, the other defensive tackle becomes the 3 technique, so he's more over like the outside of the guard. And then the nose is the nose, and he's always like right by the center.
So explain the techniques. Just break it down one more time, how that works, 3 technique, and just really tell me like I'm a 4-year-old.
So when you're looking at it in the 3-4, typically most of the time you've got a guy head up on the nose, and then 2 and that's the nose guard, the nose tackle. And then you have 2 defensive tackles who are typically, inside shades of the tackles, outside shades of the guards, head up on the tackles. They're usually kind of spread out depending on what you want to do. When we walk our outside linebacker down to play defensive end, they'll shift to the other side. So the one defensive tackle will shift more inside and play like the 3 technique, like head up on the guard, outside shade of the guard. The other defensive tackle will bump over to defensive end, so outside shade of the offensive tackle. And then the nose kind of stays where he is, maybe shifts over very slightly from head up from the center to the opposite A gap, the weak side A gap.
Okay.
So Grady could really play all 3, but I think we're going to primarily see him as the defensive tackle that would shift to the 3 tech, because that's really where he's played most of his careers, in that 3 tech position. Now, looking at it, our nose is pretty much locked in as Tyler Davidson. We re-signed him, restructured his contract, saved us some money, but it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to cut him because he's good enough and probably our most proven nose guard that we have right now.
Yeah, he does what needs to be done. He's not top tier by any means, but he's an NFL starter.
Yeah.
That's what he is. He's proven. He's not going to go out and get you a bunch of sacks. He's not going to go out make a ton of highlight plays, but he's going to do his job.
Yeah, I mean, his highest sack total is 2. He's on 3rd down, he's probably coming off the field.
Right.
So with that, now we got to talk about the other tackle, which is like kind of like the weak side tackle that would bump out to defensive end. So you need somebody who's going to be, stronger, quicker, more athletic. And the 2 guys that I kind of see pushing for that spot is John Kaminsky and Marlon Davidson.
They're both young guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Marlon Davidson is he's 23 and John Kaminsky's 25. Yeah, both very young guys.
And they both haven't proven really anything at the NFL level yet. So
yeah, and we're waiting. They're 2 guys who are pretty athletic, strong, big, and we're hoping that they can kind of take over and take it to the next level. Now, Marlon Davidson was kind of, defensive tackles typically have a hard time adjusting their first year. Not only that, Marlon Davidson did not have a preseason because of COVID, and he ended up acquiring COVID towards the beginning of the season. So you wonder how much that derailed him, because he really didn't show much last year. And I was really excited about Marlon Davidson coming out of college. He had the quote like, football is the best best sport in the world because you can come out and brutalize somebody and you're not going to go to jail. Like that fires me up.
That's intensity. I mean, that's a lot of intensity.
And when he was at Auburn, he played a lot of actually like not outside linebacker, like defensive end, but he did play some outside linebacker. Like he would stand up and rush the quarterback that way. And he was a good enough athlete that he did a pretty good job.
I like that he wears. I'm looking at a picture of him too, and this is kind of random, but he's got dual cross earrings on. Kind of like that. It just gives me like an LT vibe. He's just a wild guy. Like what you said about his quote. It's the best sport because it's a sport, and I'm paraphrasing. I don't know if this is word for word or verbatim, but because it's a sport where you can brutalize somebody and not not be incarcerated or whatever, not get in legal trouble for it.
Yeah, and he's just, I mean, he's awesome. He's somebody that you really like root for.
Good energy.
On your team.
Good energy.
Great energy, and you hope that'll translate this upcoming season. And Arthur Smith has come out and said, I know we've had OTAs, so you're not seeing the pads aren't on yet, but Arthur Smith has come out and said that he looks good. So that's a step in the right direction. We'll see what happens when camp starts, see when they start putting the pads on and hitting a little bit. We're really hoping that we'll see him kind of shine there.
Have we seen anything in regards to him and Steven Means, or do we know what their relationship's like? Because, again, as we discussed in our last session, Steven Means is another guy who has that kind of that just that amped up energy, that positive, momentum changing energy.
I don't think we know anything about the two of them together, and I would say their energies are different. Steven Means is definitely positive, bringing positivity, cheering you on, working hard, and where Marlon Davidson is more
violent.
Yeah, violent. I want to attack you. I'm going to try and put my head through your head and get to the quarterback.
And I think part of that too is one guy's a long-term NFL veteran versus a guy who's new to the league. You just have a different energy at 23 than you do when you're 28.
Yeah, completely true.
Sure.
And really different positions, right?
Right.
We're talking about interior defensive lineman versus a defensive end / outside linebacker. So I'm hoping it's Marlon Davidson, but if it's not Marlon Davidson, I also love John Kaminsky. I mean, he's a freak athlete, D2 player. Atlanta drafted him in the 4th round at 6'5", 285 pounds. This was coming out of college, so who knows how much weight he's put on. He ran a 4.67, so that's flying for that size.
That's incredible. That's 6'5", 285. He's probably, like you said, he's probably bigger now.
Mm-hmm. And I think his short shuttle was comparable to that of linebackers. So just a freak athlete.
That would be exciting.
And he's shown flashes. There were times last year where he looked like he was ready to break out. He seems like he's ready to break out, and this is going to be the year.
Could he potentially is this a guy that does he have the ability to drop into coverage?
So I don't think so. But there are definitely times where we might see him go and play. We might see him go play outside linebacker in a pinch, right? Let's say we don't have a lot of guys or whatever, and he might have to go out there.
Well, there's definitely going to be some times you'll probably see him drop into the flat or something.
Yes.
Because DMPs runs we talk about all the time.
I mean, if his shuttle is really that good and is 40 times that good, he's moving like a linebacker.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he can cover like a linebacker.
And I understand that, but my point is he has the foundation and he can be trained up without question. If your shuttle's that good, if you have straight line speed, if what Thon said, if he just ran, the 40 that he did and his shuttle wasn't what it is, I'd say, yeah, it doesn't really mean anything. But we're talking about a good shuttle time, a great shuttle time, and a great 40 time, especially for his size. I mean,
I think, though, with him, though, is you're looking...
I call him another versatile player.
He's definitely versatile. But I think with him, though, is he's already a project coming from a D2 school. So he's, right now, it feels like he's working on his craft as being a defensive lineman and trying to kind of train him up to be an outside linebacker could be a task maybe for the future.
Got it. I see. Right now, we just need to... Right.
He needs to get the rushing down and stuff.
Yeah.
He's been in the league 2 years and has 1.5 sacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not great.
He's got to work on what his main job is first and then adjust.
I hear you, but sometimes, and again, I just want to reiterate, I don't want to harp on this, but at the same time, I want to point out to people that there's something, this is a real thing. And what I'm about to say is that sometimes, like for instance, John, his main focus or his current position, it may not be the best place for him. And that's what I'm saying. Someone isn't necessarily a bad player just because they're in a position or they're not performing in that position. Didn't Albert Einstein say if you tell a fish or you try to teach a fish to climb a tree, it's going to think it's an idiot its entire life? And my point is ultimately, and I'm exaggerating my point, but he may not be in the right position. They may not have him tasked with the right responsibilities.
And I think he is because he's... I think, and this doesn't take anything away from defensive linemen, I think it's easier to play defensive line It's more violent. It's more physically demanding, but it's easier to play defensive line and go straight forward and get by one guy than it is to play outside linebacker and drop and read coverages.
I hear you, but Marlon is clearly the better. Marlon is clearly the better interior defensive lineman. It's just he's
in college. So in college,
he's bigger. He's more violent.
But in college he was. But as an NFL player, Marlon Davidson hasn't done anything.
Nor has John Kaminsky.
But Kaminsky's done a little bit more and seen more time in action.
Yeah, Davidson is extremely raw. Like, as far as an NFL player, he played
Sounds
eight games.
John is pretty raw too.
They both are.
They're
both raw
but
players.
Kaminsky's
right.
done more.
I hear you. Kaminsky's done more. He also has more years, and you know what I mean. Excuse me. Let me pull back on that. I don't know if he has more years.
Yeah,
he does.
John Kaminsky's got 2 years, and Marlon's got 1.
Okay,
and I think both of them are project type players, but I think Marlon didn't live up to his hype because of this lack of training camp, because of COVID.
Last year, if you're gonna give someone a break, it was last year. It was 2020.
Definitely.
If you're gonna give anyone a break anytime, it's 2020.
Definitely. And so that's why I think Marlon Davidson is going to win this job, and I think it's going to be Marlon Davidson, and I think Kaminsky's going to be the first defensive line in the rotation coming off the bench.
You're going to see a lot of him. Whoever's the first guy coming off, you're going to see a lot of him this year. It's not like there's a huge separation.
Yeah, I like them both. I like them both a lot.
On like passing downs, there's no reason to have Tyler Davidson in there, and if you could take him out and throw Kaminsky in, and now you've got Kaminsky as kind of like one end, you've got Davidson as kind of the other end, and then Grady in the interior.
Yeah, that's kind of a fun setup. Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things that we can do just as far as like with this defensive line and the linebackers. Like we've talked about Michael Walker. It gives us some flexibility there.
Just, man, at 6'5", 285 pounds, I can't help but in the shuttle time, in the 40 time that he has, I can't help but like, gosh, I just love to see him. I know I'm harping on that, but I love to see him get some looks maybe at linebacker or just outside.
And
right.
I think we
exactly
will.
Outside linebacker. I'm not talking about I'm not talking about inside.
I think we will see him there a little bit. I just don't think it'll be ever out there asking him to drop into coverage.
Like I said, I think the most you'll see him drop into the flat to cover for a blitz.
Sure.
And so not a huge coverage responsibility, but just
enough. Enough meaning, when I say enough, meaning according to his attributes, and maybe some coaching from Dean Pease, ideally he'll have enough to do so.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean,
he'll have enough to drop into the flats, and with his athletic profile, it's possible one day that he could possibly play that outside linebacker position. But I think with what we have right now, with Michael Walker, I think is more suitable to bump down and play the outside linebacker position than Kaminsky is bumping out and playing it because of that versatility that Michael Walker brings.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think you lose something in coverage by putting Kaminsky out there.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's, and I mean, yeah, we're already doing that with some guys too, right? Like,
yeah, there's so much. There's gonna be people are gonna be asked to do a lot of different things this year, and I think
like JTM, we're already doing that with JTM.
Mm-hmm. JTM, we could see him. We could see all of these guys we just talked about, besides Grady, come off the field, and we could see JTM bump inside and rush from the interior.
Yeah.
So the next guy I want to talk about, because these 4 guys that we've mentioned are for sure roster locks. They're making the team. They're going to be in the rotation. The next guy who's a roster lock is Taekwon Graham, who drafted in the 5th round out of Texas.
Yeah, big guy, project. I mean, he does good against the run. He's strong, has no pass rushing moves at all.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the defensive line goes, I was definitely more excited about AO. Although we took Graham earlier than AO, right? We took Graham. He was one of our 4th, right?
Graham was the early 5th round pick. So
early 5th.
He was 148, and AO was 182.
Right. So yeah, I'm more excited about AO, but Graham, frankly, just kind of seems like another guy. in the trenches. There's not much that really stands out about him. It's not a shot at Graham. It's just, as we just discussed, we've got John Kaminsky down there. We've got Marlon down there, Marlon Davidson. We've
Grady.
got
So when
Tyler Davidson, Grady Jarrett. It's just like we've got enough going on down there.
Here's my notes for Taekwon Graham when I scouted him. He's big, athletic at 295 pounds. He's got really long arms, strong hands. He's really stout against the run, and he's got really a great get-off and great movement skills. And he's versatile because he did play some defensive end in college, and he's played nose and tackle. He's a team captain, and when you look at his physical attributes, like his combine or pro day numbers, they're very, very similar to Gerald McCoy, who is just an absolute force for Oklahoma, and then obviously Tampa Bay, who we saw him plenty, and then he's bounced around the league a little bit. So when I look at him, he's another, similar to AO, he's a project. He's great. He's going to come in, though, same thing with AO. He's great against the run, and he's going to have to use his tools and his physical ability to get more of a pass rush.
Yeah, he needs to get some tools.
He has more physical ability as a defensive tackle than AO does as a outside linebacker, defensive end. If that
Definitely,
makes sense.
But as far as helpful in the pass rush, he's behind.
Right,
Yes.
right. He's
Like if I needed a guy to get to the quarterback, AO over Taekwon right now. But just as an overall player, Taekwon Graham is better and has more skills.
And here's
has more athletic ability.
Sure. So why I say I'm more excited about AO though, and I understand that this is an interior discussion, defensive interior line. Now, however, the reason I say I'm more excited about AO is Taekwon Graham, does he have a better skill set? Is he all around probably a better player at this point in time? Yes. However, given the layout or the depth chart, the need for someone like Taekwon Graham is less than it is, a run stopper, right? The need for that on our team right now, or on the Falcons roster, is less than it is for a pass rush. And AO brings a potential pass rush threat. Not necessarily immediately, as we've previously discussed in past sessions, but potentially. And that's why I'm more excited about AO. And Taekwon Graham, I'm just not all that excited because there's not a need for it right now.
And it's similar to like we talked about with the linebacker position, like the inside backers with like Deion Jones. Right now, Grady Jarrett is paid a lot, and they had an opportunity this year to restructure his contract and extend him, and they chose not to do that, and they're just going to sit on it. So I wonder if it's a possibility, and I hope they don't do this, but I'm wondering if it's a possibility they're thinking, all right, we'll bring in Taekwon Graham, see what happens with him, see what happens with Kaminsky, see what happens with Marlon Davidson, and maybe we move on from Grady Jarrett when his contract's up, or maybe
it's the smart thing to do.
So
you're running a business; it's the smart thing to do.
You have to be ready. Worst case or best case scenario, you keep Grady Jarrett. Taekwon Graham turns into something, and you've got more off defensive line, and they know what to do it.
And he absolutely could. But this year, is he going to make an impact?
I would say
probably not.
I would say he's going to make more of an impact on rushing, like on run stopping, and
you
like
think
giving
we'll see him in there?
Huh?
You think we'll see him in there on third downs, or
not third downs, like first downs, or like third and shorts and stuff like that. I think we'll see him get more. I think he'll get more reps there than AO will get rushing the passer this year. And if not, it's like you said, strictly based on need.
It's exactly that. My whole perspective on Taekwon Graham is just based on need. I think he's a great player. Mm-hmm. I'm glad we have him.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about need and impact this year.
Yeah.
Or the potential for impact this year.
Agreed 100%. So, and we're all in agreement, like he's making the roster.
He is 100%. He's going to make the roster.
Yep.
Unless something outlandish happens, which then we could be talking about anybody.
Now, I sit there and I wonder about the sixth spot. Like I have to imagine 3 defensive linemen. We're going to keep a sixth guy just for either the rotation or even somebody who might come in like inactive, right? Because you only have so many players that are active. So
here's what I think. I don't think we keep a 6 guy. The reason I say that is we've got JTM who can move inside. We've already, he's from the inside, right? That's where his roots are. His roots are interior defensive line. We can easily bring him down if need be. We've got Kaminsky. We've got Marlon. Then to back those guys up, we just drafted Taekwon Graham. I don't think there's no reason to keep a 6 guy, in my opinion.
And I get 100% what you're saying, and I actually didn't think about that at all. And I actually, thinking about what you just said, all of those guys, though, can any of them play nose tackle? So if Tyler Davidson goes down, can anybody play nose tackle and clog up the middle and stop the run?
Grady Jarrett can.
So Grady Jarrett can, but do you want to use him in that way?
If we needed to use him in that way, the other guy that I would go to would probably be Marlon Davidson. Then I would hop to Taekwon Graham.
And that's the thing, though, is like none of those guys,
they're not proven.
Even Grady Jarrett, he can do it, but he's a penetrator. He's not a run. He doesn't take on 2 blocks and like hold his ground. And not that he can't, but his best asset, and the way we probably should be using him, is shooting gaps, getting in there, causing havoc, disrupting plays. So
no doubt, but there's enough between JTM, Taekwon Graham, Marlon Davidson. I don't see John Kaminsky being that guy. There's enough between those 3.
Him and JTM can't do that.
What's that?
Be like the nose.
Well, when I say JTM, when I'm referring to JTM, because I agree, right? He's lost way too much weight. You know what I mean? He's not. Maybe even before he couldn't do that. My point is, there's enough. If JTM had to come down, like if we lost Tyler Davidson, it's Marlon, Taekwon Graham could step up. JTM could fill. Is my point. It's the same thing. It's similar, at least in my opinion, to asking, hey, if Grady Jarrett goes down, what happens? I have no idea.
Well, that's a different.
But there's nobody at the 6th spot that is going to be able to make an impact to the degree that I think would justify keeping a 6th interior defensive line.
I kind of side more on the other end of that because, like Thon said, you need a guy, especially in the 3-4, that can just sit there and hold the middle, not do any. Like Grady can't do it all game.
I agree, but tell me, why can't Taekwon Graham do it? Why can't Marlon Davidson do it?
They're not big enough or strong enough. Yeah,
Marlon Davidson is absolutely big enough and strong enough.
So and then we don't know that though because he got blown off the ball quite a few times last year, and it's like, and
like I said, 2020 is one. I honestly think 2020 is. You've got to take everything from 2020 with a grain of salt, or at least dim it down. Successes and failures.
I agree, but I don't want to go into a season and say, you know what, something happens, Marlon Davidson can do it, but we don't really know if he can.
But so who else do you put there? Let's talk about that, guys. Who do you put at the 6th spot?
So the only 2 guys, in my opinion, unless you're like, okay, we know this guy can be a run stuffer, the only 2 guys that have any sort of experience would be Jonathan Bullard, who I think is too light, and I actually think he's going to be the odd man out because I see him more as one of those defensive tackle spots. And then I have to just wonder about Deidrin Sanat. Like every time he's been in, he's played some nose, he's played some 3 technique, and he's done well. And the last regime just continued to make him inactive week after week after week, and then there'd be an injury and he'd play a little bit and he'd show flashes and then he'd go right back to being inactive.
Yeah, that's been his career.
So, and he was a 3rd round pick.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what is going on with him. I would not be shocked to see him be the 6th guy.
This is Deidrin, right?
Huh?
This is Deidrin, right?
Yeah. What did I call him?
I think you said Deidrin.
Okay.
Yep.
But I would not be shocked. It's like he's like so polarizing. I would not be shocked to see him be the 6th guy, and at the same time, I would not be shocked to see him off the team. Like I don't know. I don't know what to make of him.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the argument that we just had. Like exactly like you said.
Stop the run?
If they need you need a backup nose tackle, because I mean it's an exhausting position. Mm-hmm. You got to have a backup, so they just got to decide: whoever we have. Can they do it? And if not, then I think Sanat is probably the next man up. Mm-hmm. And it could even be, this would be a stretch, I think, but Zach Dawe came into college as an offensive lineman and transitioned to the D-line, and maybe he could put on the size and strength to do it. I don't know.
So I really like Zach Dawe because Zach Dawe to me is like much more explosive, and he's seems fast for his size. Guys, I would rather see him play that defensive end spot. So I see Dawe, like, in my opinion, he's a lock for the practice squad.
I need some correction here then, because we're talking about Deidre Sanat. We talk about size, power, ability to fill the middle. He's 6'1", 305, okay? I was talking about Marlon Davidson earlier. He's 6'3", 303.
Yeah, but how you use your size matters.
Absolutely does.
Like Tyler
Davidson. But I'm saying Marlon Davidson can absolutely play that role if he needs to.
But he hasn't yet.
He hasn't done that. He's got
1 year in, guys. He's got 1 year in, and it was 2020. That's what I'm saying, though,
is I don't want to rely on somebody who he has 1 year in, but he hasn't shown that he can do it.
Do we have enough from Deidre and Sanat to...
So that's what I'm saying is I
don't think we do.
We don't know, but what I'm saying, he might be able to. And Marlon Davidson might be able to, but we don't know yet. So when I'm sitting here like trying to predict like what's going to happen as like a backup nose, I would rather side with what we don't know. Is I've seen Sanat do it a little bit. I haven't seen Marlon Davidson do it at all.
Sure. Okay. That makes sense. I could come over on that.
Even Tyler Davidson's 310. Like Tyler Davidson isn't much bigger than these other guys, and he's the nose. But he's done it, and he's shown he can do it.
He's shown that he can do it. Right, absolutely.
And I would actually argue, Jeff, to your point, like Zach Dawe coming in. I think, like I said, I think he's awesome, and I think he's going to be more of that defensive end spot.
That's what I would think. I just said maybe he can.
Technique.
Maybe he could have a little bit extra or something, but he's way further down, in my opinion, on the list. But I'm just trying to off who I'm looking at.
He weighed 275 or 285.
Yeah. I just didn't know if there was room for weight on the frame.
I'm wondering. So Zach, like I said, I think he's a lock for the practice squad, but I'm wondering if possibly John Atkins could do it because he was, he got drafted. He got drafted to do that kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure he got drafted. He played for the Lions for a couple years. And that's what he did in college. He's a massive individual, 6'3". Well, he came in at 6'3", 220 or 325. And I just wonder if that's something he could do, like maybe be that inactive guy who's like he's a roster bubble guy, inactive, active when we need him to be, possibly run stop. I don't know. But like, going back to what Ferg said, if none of these guys can do it, then maybe it's Marlon Davidson. Maybe it's Sanat. Maybe we keep 5 guys and,
So when I say I think we keep 5, let me tell you a little bit about my reasoning, where I'm getting this from. We've talked about virtually every position. We've got very few left to discuss, right? Mm-hmm. We've got secondary and the defense, and that's about it,
yep.
Right?
And we won't
dive into special teams. What's that?
We won't be diving into special teams.
Right, of course not. Right.
Young Wei Koo doesn't matter about anybody else.
But okay. Well, there's one other individual that shall not be named. Okay, so getting back to what I was saying is, regarding my reasoning or my logic, we haven't talked about a single, at least not, I can't recollect a single position where there are definitive cuts. Well, we did. Excuse me. I think it was fullback, tight end. We talked about a couple guys getting cut. Did we not?
And outside linebacker, I think Kobe Jones is cut.
Well, who did we say?
And wide receiver too. There's so many guys.
Who did we say at fullback though?
Dang it! Say it. Somebody else say it. All right, John Maine.
Who is it?
Dang it. I'm so sorry, John. All right, we'll get to your point.
Okay, my point. Sorry, I got to take a minute. My point is that guys are going to get cut.
For sure.
Guys are going to get cut at virtually almost every position. Not all, but almost every position guys are going to get cut. And that's why I say I just don't. This is a position, it's not riddled with enough talent. The interior defensive line, it's not riddled with enough talent. Like
I think so, but like I think
Deidre Sonata's a guy. He's a guy you could pick someone up off waivers. Listen to me, fantasy football, free agency. You get Deidre Sonata. Waivers, right? Yeah,
but either one. But I think like Sonat and Bullard, both of those guys are 3rd round picks. Maybe they're not playing up to like 3rd round pick potential, but I think we could cut both of those guys and see them on somebody else's roster playing. Maybe not starting.
Sure.
Like I don't sit there and say like these are 2 guys starters for sure locks. I think we have enough depth at defensive tackle that they will play somewhere else. These 2 guys in particular. I don't know about the rest.
That makes sense. Makes sense.
So, like you said, people are going to get cut, and we don't know what's going to happen. But just to argue your point, and kind of something similar that Jeff said, is you take a lot of punishment at the nose spot, and we just need to have. We can't just have one guy that can play the nose. When you look at Dean Pease, or like really a lot of successful 3-4s, you've got your Haloti Nadas,
you have Cam Hayward,
you've got
wasn't Albert Hainsworth,
He mainly played in the 4-3.
4-3, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a big guy.
He probably could have done it.
Yeah,
but
he mainly played 4-3.
Vince Wilfork was
perfect
example.
example.
He's one of them,
perfect.
right.
And those are perfect diet. Like that's
just
great
big
examples.
monsters.
But
right.
you can't just have one because those guys are going to need a break. They're going to need to come off, and if something happens, you need somebody who can kind of hold up. And we don't know who that is, and it's up to Dean Pease and Arthur Smith to figure out who it is. So the other 2 guys that we haven't talked about, and 2 guys who I don't think are going to be making the roster, is Chris Slayton out of Syracuse. Chris has he's shown flashes, and in college he's shown flashes of just brilliance. But he's somebody who, he shows flashes, but his overall production was pretty poor. He almost seems like he gives up on plays. He just seems like he's not really giving a full effort snap to snap.
And that's why I think you saw him as a flyer pick for the Giants in the 7th round.
Yeah.
And they had him for 1 year and gave up. That looks like.
I gotta say something too. You gotta talk we're dipping into college football here as well. I know some guys who have played at Syracuse, and I know some guys who have some of those same guys have played elsewhere as well. And Syracuse football culture, I'm gonna rag on Syracuse University right now for a second. The culture there is just poor. What I've been told by people who have played at a couple different universities, not just one, but multiple individuals, almost all of them, well, I say all of them, I'm thinking of two individuals specifically, they've both said the culture is terrible. It's just terrible. And my point is, you may have a guy who's great, but he was just part of horrible culture for so long, he needs some motivation. I'm looking at some of his pictures even. I hate to say it, there's just no energy. You just look at his face and he's just sitting there. He looks dead.
Yeah.
There's no energy. And that's part of being in a horrible culture, right? Where it's the success isn't, success is not paramount. It's
I think,
how do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a perfect guy to bring in for camp, which is what they did. And if they see something, maybe he's a practice squad guy, but I don't see any way, even with as good as the flashes he's shown, I don't see any way he surpasses any of the other guys we've talked about.
Certainly. Yeah.
So
I definitely agree.
Maybe he's a practice squad guy. If he comes in and shows he can put that effort up, maybe he plays on the practice squad. But if not, then he's just another cut. So the only other guy that we really haven't talked about who's on the squad is Olive Sagapula. I probably butchered that.
I don't know how to pronounce his first name.
Olive?
Sagapula.
It's spelled Olive.
Yeah, maybe it very well could be Olive.
But,
similar situation.
Yeah, I mean, he's
he was on a practice squad.
Yeah, possibly a practice squad.
Well, not last year he was. I meant similar to Slayton. He was on a practice squad. I'm saying for us,
maybe he's supposed to be a great athlete, 6'2", 325 pounds. Maybe we keep him because we want to keep a big-bodied guy, and he's better than John Atkins or something along those lines. But I've liked Atkins' play much better in college. Sagapula just he didn't do anything to me that I was wow, this guy is awesome. He again supposed to be a great athlete. I guess he can do a backflip.
He could be on the practice squad and can Atkins can if he's one of the special designations, right?
No, Atkins can be because this is going to be technically his second year because he sat out because of COVID.
Or third year. He played 2 years for the Lions. He played in 2018, 2019, sat out 2020.
Oh, my mistake. I thought he only played 1 year. But yeah, Atkins still could be like the...
Yeah.
Because we're going to have 6 guys that can play longer than that.
I didn't know how the COVID designation played into that.
It's still, as far as we know, that still applies. But we could see that. We could see him, either one of those guys, being on the D-line. I like Atkins more than Sagapula, and I would like to see them keep him. So, because we're starting to get low on time, I just want to kind of review who we've talked about really quickly. We've got Grady Jarrett, bona fide best interior defensive lineman that we have. Then we've got Tyler Davidson, who's probably going to start at the nose. Then we've got Marlon Davidson, and we've got John Kaminsky, both competing, I think, and I think you guys agree with me, both competing for that other starting defensive end spot. We're really hoping one of them win, with the other one kind of being the first guy rotating in. Then after that, we have Taekwon Graham, who is a for-sure roster lock. We're hoping he can provide us some support in the run game. And then whether they keep a 6th guy or not, I think Jeff and I are leaning towards keeping a 6th guy. Ferg's more up in the air, and we're hoping that somebody's going to come out and really take the spot. And then, in my opinion, we've got Zach Dawe as a lock for the practice squad. And if we don't keep a 6th guy on the roster, I would be willing to bet that John Atkins or Olive Sagapula makes the practice squad if we don't keep that 6th guy. So, with that, we're going to sign off. Again, this is Thon Ray. You guys can follow us at Falcons_drip on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Please make sure you subscribe, follow, whatever you need to do to get the alert for our next episode. If you guys enjoyed today, please leave us a review. It always helps us grow. Until then, see you next time. Rise up.